Speaking of Nolan Bros, here's a picture of us that we took together where we recreated the Thunderbolts poster.
Right,
and I actually love it. Especially, it's right there.
It's right here, guys.
I'm not going to put
actually,
it there.
it's right there. Come on.
I'm not going to put it there just so you guys look
It's
like
right there,
these.
It's right here.
It's right there.
That looks really weird in outside of context for those who are somehow watching me in my room.
Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious? World. I could do this all day. Are you watching closely?
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Your mic doesn't sound like crap.
No, it doesn't. Because I charged it and I got it all ready. It's been charging for an hour. So it better be good. How are you doing? So good.
Protein shake ice cream.
I got a Lindt chocolate truffle.
Just as good. Mostly because it has real sugar.
Yeah.
What's the weather like down there?
34.
Dude, colder than us.
Get wrecked.
Zach, this is not fair. It is frustrating because Josh...
It's a poopy pants.
Josh is pooping. Josh
My feelings.
is in Virginia, and he has 35-degree weather, and we have 42. I don't understand how that makes any sense.
It's supposed to snow for you guys in a little bit.
Well, it was 49 where I'm at today.
49?
Yeah. How warm was it for you where you're at, Seth?
It's 42 right now.
Oh, it's 42 right now. It's 40 here. How warm was it today for you?
Got up to 50.
Oh, it did. Okay.
We've had freeze warnings and stuff.
Nice.
Since it's humid over here, it's scary because dew in the morning, weirdly enough, like middle of the day, 45. Once it gets dark out, it's like 15, 20.
Wow. Anyways, I'm eating my protein ice cream.
Nice.
From my creamy. That's amazing.
Oh, that's kind of disgusting.
Big stretch.
Yeah, it sounded a little juicy, Josh.
Yeah,
Is that his stomach or what was that?
No, I think because the microphone's right at his neck, you could hear like gargling.
Okay. I thought Josh really was a poopy pants for a second there.
I mean, it really did sound like
I'm sitting in my new chair. This one's black. The old one was white. Because I finally got a replacement for the one that Josh broke.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
We were having, I think it was in the middle of episode 9.
Oh, yeah.
A really cool scene. Josh is leaning back and then pow! The armrest breaks and the whole thing is useless. I've been sitting forward for the past 2 weeks. Just sitting on the front end of it so I couldn't lean back.
Do you have abs?
No, unfortunately.
Dang. Just trying to do you a favor.
We disassembled it to throw it in the trash. It felt like, I don't know, getting rid of a body. It's like we had to take everything apart to make it less suspicious.
bodies are much more difficult to get rid of.
Wait a second.
Hang on.
Roll it back.
Honestly, if you want to do it right, you got to feed them to pigs because they eat everything except the teeth. So you got to burn that.
The one I think
Burn
of.
teeth?
Wait, can you
Actually-
burn teeth?
Yeah, they're just really hard to do.
Oh.
You can burn anything if you have enough patience.
Yeah, speaking of teeth, do you want to see mine?
And heat.
Just pulls out a jar full of teeth.
These are
Those are
my
baby
wisdom
teeth?
teeth. Yeah, those are my wisdom
Oh,
teeth.
your wisdom teeth.
Oh,
I still
okay.
have them, actually.
Wisdom teeth are interesting to keep, but baby teeth, people keep their baby teeth, and I don't get that.
They could easily just sell it on the black market or something.
Why?
The black market in the form of underneath their pillow, and then the tooth fairy comes back.
Why are we selling
Tooth
baby
fairy
teeth on
is
the
the
black
black
market?
I don't know.
I have
People
no
have weird
idea.
tastes. I don't know.
Okay, backing up. Let's open with this. If you had to dispose of a body, how would you do it? Right now. And who would you do it with?
Who would I do it with?
Not William, because I'm scared he'd throw me in there because I'm evidence.
You'd be okay. So you're like digging the grave, and then Will says only one witness, and it's him. And it's just back of the head.
Exactly.
No way.
Not
You
William.
quote the NF song, and he's like, "I thought we were digging my grave. We did."
I mean, honestly, I'd probably do it with my brother. I feel like that or Jack, because yeah, I could probably get away with doing that with him. And yeah, again, like I said, if I don't have any pigs, so I can't really feed him to him. But if I did, I'd do that. Otherwise, finding maybe like underneath in a swampy. No, swampy area can preserve it though. Probably just finding somewhere deep in the woods and then just digging a nice deep grave, or leaving parts of it open so that some coyotes can eat it. Well, that leaves it exposed though, but you want it to kind of decompose quickly. Burning's always an option. Lots of oil, gas.
All right. Well, William's obviously the most versed.
I'm going to expose someone. I think I would pick my sister Abby because she's read the most like murder mystery and like investigative books. Plus, she's got like a very good stone cold face that could hide anything. And I would be scared to interrogate it because she'd be staring straight into my soul.
Yeah.
If I was the one interrogating her.
Yeah.
So my sister Abby, and what we would do is we would drop it over Niagara Falls. Let the water carry it away.
All right. Interesting. Zach?
I'm blanking on who I do it with, and I feel like I actually had a plan for this at one point, but
Wait a second.
I mean, not like a.
That's before he found Christ.
I was a different man back then.
Not because I was actually going to do it, just because I've had a question like this posed to me before. And
sure.
what I'm thinking of right now is, like taking it out in the middle of a body of water somewhere, weighing it down somehow, and then just dropping it to the bottom. It seemed like the best way to do that.
Same vibes as Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mariana Trench.
And you just do that. And you just do it solo?
Yeah.
Good.
He doesn't need people.
Do it with Ben.
Ben Radish?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm going to say Ben Radish. Yeah.
I was kind of joking, but yeah, it would be good. I'd obviously have to take Ellie.
You mean as the person you're hiding the body with?
No, I'd take her out. No. Yes.
That was a really short marriage.
Well, as Josh once said, you are the person most likely to kill her.
That's true. But in this case, we are Bonnie and Clyde, side by side, doing a crime. And I think of the episode, I guess I don't know if it's fact or fiction. It's either Blacklist.
Ooh, that's a good show. Wait, no, I haven't actually seen that show. I don't know why I said it was good.
Okay.
I've heard it's good. That's what I should have said.
It's either Criminal Minds or Blacklist. That like the second or third episode, there's a guy who dissolves bodies in a tub.
Nice.
With certain solution, which sounds more morbid and terrible, and it is, but that seems like the best way to get rid of. I think it's the Blacklist. You leave no trace except residue. But that was my choice.
So Arcane.
I was gonna lead into that.
So child murder,
actually,
right?
Well, let's start off.
How are we feeling?
Okay, have you seen those ones? Like the actor ones?
Yeah.
Those are funny. Like, maybe Arcane was the friends made along the way. And I'm just like, you know how they really should have ended it? Just had it like Caden say like, wait a second, what are we? Some kind of League of Legends? She said the thing.
Did.
And then have the last thing be like them all together and like just like Mel saying, maybe Arcane was the friends we made along the way. She said the thing.
Maybe Arcane was the friends we made along the way.
Victor Nation, how are we feeling? Jace, JB, or JB not?
What are we? Some kind of League of Legends?
Maybe Arcane was the friends we made along the way.
He's right behind me, isn't he?
So yeah, as we get into Arcane very smoothly and fluidly from one topic to another, I want to plug our Discord for the viewers and listeners. I guess there's people who just listen, because we do movie reviews there, or I do at least. Everyone else is invited to as well, but we have spoiler reviews and spoiler free, and I think those are a lot of fun. We rarely do reviews, even though we're kind of leaning that way. Like last week's episode was Wicked, and then now we're talking about Arcane. But we really want people to enjoy it, as is. So if you choose to open that channel, you're choosing to know a little bit about the movie. So, but we still want you to be a part of the Discord and join that, so we can talk as fans of movies together and just hang out. So Yeah. Go do that. First off, as we again dive in, we have had 2 episodes of Arcane already, and those cover season 1. And I listened to those and got a few clips of our predictions, as well as some crazy stuff. There's one thing that Josh said that was crazy. But
crap! I forgot.
We're gonna listen to this one, and then we'll see what that spawns. Even Jace and Victor, they have their flaws. They're not perfect, obviously. No character is going to be perfect. But Jace kind of gets power hungry. Victor gets hungry for innovation and always wants more. I mean, yes, that's a character flaw. I would say Victor is probably one of the closest to being morally correct. And yet he's still misleaded, like any character is. I don't want to say that any character has to be Jesus, who is perfect, but most characters find themselves not on a moral path simply because there is no good guy. I think the point that I had with that clip was that I said that Victor is the most morally correct, which is so interesting going into this episode. Yeah. The hard part, and we were talking in our Nolan Bros group chat, I guess we weren't talking, I brought it up. Are Vi and Jinx the main characters anymore of Arcane? Now, obviously, they're kind of nobodies that we follow, even though Jinx is the most wanted criminal, but Vi kind of becomes same level as other characters. And the more important story is Victor's. So while Arcane Season 2 is about the redemption, trying to bring the sisters back together again, Victor kind of takes the center stage as the driving force for everything. And I mean, the title of the episode is called "Well, That Escalated Quickly," because Zach sent us a reel of when Victor was talking to Singe, either take the vial of Shimmer or don't. And basically taking the vial of Shimmer made him into God. And that's how Season 2 ended. We were all like, that's a lot. Let's get through a few more of these things that Josh and I said in the previous episodes, but then I want to hear your guys' thoughts on Season 2.
That could be a huge theme throughout the entire show. You could see greed past the point where you're seeing it cost a lot more than you want it to. Like, Victor has seen that. Could be seeing that. Silco saw it, and that could be the whole theme of the next season, where you've already given up so much and you commit to this thing that's just costing you more and more and more and more and more, to the point where you have nothing left to give. And it could be a solemn ending where it's just, I've got nothing left. I gave everything to this cause. Like Silco gave his life to it. Jinx, we have no idea where she's going to go, but Vi could give everything to try and fight for her sister, to the point where she doesn't have anything left to give and it just doesn't work. Same with Victor, same with Jace. This whole theme of giving everything for something that's unattainable could be the theme. And I love that idea.
So giving up everything is something Josh said, and I think rightly predicted. Now, I believe that Victor's perspective is that he gains everything, but he gave up a lot. And especially when you see Jace kind of yearn to have his friend back, and Victor's like, I'm not interested. I'm here to make the world better, literally, by controlling everybody and making them into robots. But I think Josh nailed that. Pretty spot on. Not that you props to you, Josh, for being the only one on the episode and that we made predictions.
No, I think I got it partially correct, but that I don't think that was the major theme. The major theme was striving for perfection in Victor. Like, that's what the ending dialogue at the final scene was. And it did cost Victor everything, even his emotion. But that wasn't necessarily the theme. The theme was, in striving for perfection, you give up some of the main things that make you who you are, like your flaws.
Yeah. Ooh, that's actually really good. Giving up your flaws, not to become perfect, but to become less of yourself.
Yes.
Ooh. I like it. Ooh, bars. Sorry, we'll get this clip done and then we'll talk. What's one thing that you want from Season 2? What storyline do you want them to follow and how?
I think what we were talking about earlier. Now, I think a good story is one that ignores an optimal outcome.
Yes.
So what I want a story that is going to forget what we want as a fan base to happen. I want a story that is going, like what we were talking about, where like greed is going to make people pay a lot more than they want to, and then just keep paying into this quest that they're on, and then in the end just realize that it was all for nothing. I want that story. I think what I want in the next season is I want people to keep on fighting for whatever they're fighting for, only for it to be at their expense to a point where there's just no return. Everybody's just stuck in a pit. And I want an outcome where Vi obviously comes out on top, but it's Vi and Jinx, but it's not an outcome that's happy. I think Victor, I think he's gonna die. I think Jace, I actually think he's gonna die too. I think Mel is going to somehow take power, and then there's gonna be some sort of, like, Echo is going to be the saving grace of the story, and Vi is going to team up with Echo, and then they're gonna come out on top of this, but it's going to be to a point where we've made it, but we don't want to be here because of how much it's cost us. I think that's what I want from season 2. What about you?
I think that's a great assumption, subjecting expectations and making them different than what we expect. I think there are going to be a lot of tough decisions from multiple characters. Like I said, I would love to see us the first episode deal with Jace being majorly injured and Victor somehow being able to help him. I think making him be the person who decides whether Jace lives or dies by using the Arcane is something that should definitely be explored. I think once Jace survives and is given a life by Victor, he now has to decide how he's going to approach this. He's obviously going to want to go to war, and I think that will be the initial reaction.
Yeah.
Because that's what Jinx kind of declared. Even though Silco's dead now, Jinx attacked and brought destruction. But Jace is going to have to mend his relationship with Vi after they kind of parted ways. And I think Jace is going to have to come to a decision that is better than what he wants. Now, what he wants is something that seems a lot more logical, but he has to make this decision. He has to decide whether he is for progress or for Piltover. Mm-hmm. Because Piltover doesn't need progress anymore. They need to survive. They need to exist at the end of the day. And his progress is not going to help that. And he needs to put a stop to it and then team up with probably Jinx and make an agreement with her the same way he almost made an agreement with Silco.
So do you think the season is going to end in independence for Zahn?
I think one of them is going to be destroyed. And I won't say which one because I think it could go either way. I think it will either turn into the good ending is Piltover being victorious and crushing the underworld so that there's no more bad people, is what they'll say. But what could happen is that the underworld takes over Piltover and turns into, I don't know what the storyline is called, but the Batman crime-ridden Gotham, whatever that storyline is called, where all of the villains escape and run rampant, and they're the ones who are running the city, and there's still people trapped inside of it. I think that could be the other end of it, where the underworld takes control of Piltover, and it's just chaos the same way that was chaos down in the underworld. Like, Silco's vision is achieved, but you realize that it's not really worth it. It's not what it seemed to be.
Yeah. I think it could get to a point where it's, I think what I'm kind of expecting, where there's a point where neither is fully destroyed, but the war is going on and it's just so strong that it's a wasteland, and then the power struggle between both sides is just going to get torn apart, and there's going to be new leaders, and there's going to be, like, I don't think Jace is living the next season, and I think there's going to be a new leader, there's going to be a new man of progress, there's going to be a new person that shows up and is like, all right, live out Jace's idea, but now I'm in charge. But he's going to be bad, and then it's going to be like a whole new dynamic, because now it's just bad versus bad, because Jinx is fighting for Zahn. This is me daydreaming about it, but I think that it's going to turn into a wasteland, and both leaders are going to be torn down to their roots.
I got Jace and Victor correct, and I did kind of get Vi correct, kind of.
You predicted Vi coming out on top, and maybe something happening to Jinx, and that is true. So I just think that you watched season 1 so much, you became the storyteller yourself. You understood the characters so well, and that's what you said in both those episodes, is that you're like, I just understand why each character chooses what they choose. That's your big thing for Arcane.
I loved the way that they carried out the second season, because I don't get super into shows, like I do Arcane, because not as many shows follow character motives as well as this show does. Like, even in their sin or even in their, like, flaws, if you were in their shoes, you can't say you do any different, but you know that you're doing the wrong thing. That same thing happens through the second season, and that's what makes the second season still good. Not as good as the first season. I'm going to be the first to say that. Second season isn't as good, but it's still really good. And the fact that you can tell the trajectory of the story because you know each person's priorities.
Roll right into your other thoughts. Moving away from what we predicted in previous episodes. You already said that you'd say season 1 is better than season 2. And what else did you like about it?
I really liked I'm going to compare it to something because I don't know how else to do it. I actually kind of liked that Jinx and Vi weren't the main characters or like the main story, it felt like. It felt like it, at first, in Lord of the Rings, for example, the story feels heavily focused on Frodo and Sam. But then towards the end of Lord of the Rings, it feels like it's a balance between everything. And then it kind of narrows back down onto Sam and Frodo. So the story expands and then kind of goes back in onto the original main characters. Because then Aragorn and his story happens, and then Gandalf and Merry and Pippin, they have their own side story. Everyone's got something. Same thing kind of happened with Arcane, where everything kind of split. Everybody has their stories, and no one truly feels like a main character until it goes back down onto a different main character, which I thought was really interesting between Victor and Jace.
Okay. What would you say? Yeah, what would you say to Victor becoming the antagonist? Because that's really what he became. It's not a anti-hero story where the villain is the main character, but it really started centering around him, you know?
Yeah. I loved the way that they did that. Now, I don't play League of Legends, so I have a ton of grace for this. I talked to my brother-in-law who plays League of Legends, and he said that he had a few quarrels with making Victor a deity, which is in the game, and it didn't quite make sense in the lore of everything else in League of Legends. Now, I don't know the lore of League of Legends, so I can forgive it. Making Victor the person in the very beginning having the most flaws and being in living in the shadow of everyone else's glory is really cool to kind of see him become the opposite. So he was a protagonist in the very beginning, but he was kind of just supporting everyone and getting nothing for it. And then he becomes the main, I don't want to say villain, but like the main protagonist. And that's just a really cool contrast between the first season and the second season. And I think it was beautifully done.
I'm going to disagree with you in saying that like the Jinx and Vi don't become the main characters, because I still think that for the most part they're the most focused and most prevalent. And like I don't feel like Jace or Echo especially like get as much time screen, I think, in this season as the last one. I don't really know the details, so I can't say for certain, but it feels, I mean, I don't think they were focused on as much in this season, but like the first 3 episodes are very much focused on like the feud between the sisters. We kind of get like a little bit of like a difference in like the act 2 and act 3 is still very heavily focused on them as well, especially with the Vander whole sequence going on. I mean, so I don't know, I'm maybe not, but I think that they're still like the more focused on characters. I think it's Caitlyn becomes more of a prominent character in this dynamic, and then Bessa becomes more of a prominent character. But like a lot of the other characters, I think they're still very much the main characters per se. But we just, because like Mel, we don't really get as much for. Jace, we don't really get as much for. Echo, we don't really get as much for. Heimerdinger, we don't really get as much for, because they're kind of just like disappear, and then they only kind of appear a little bit again and again, and then they come back for the final like few episodes, and that's it.
I completely understand. I think I just disagree. I think the main characters
You're just wrong.
Josh, if you're in this room, I'd slap you.
Because in my thought process, the climax of the story is involving the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
So the climax of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is Frodo over the lava with the ring. And then Gollum in that time, he is the main antagonist. Like, he is exactly what Frodo has been kind of fighting this whole time. Something that's helping him get there, but at the same time is also pulling him back at the very end. And then Sam is also like another main character. Aragorn isn't the main character because the climax happens with Frodo.
Even though Aragorn is the focus of a lot of Return of the King because he's fighting the battle, he's leading the charge and all that.
Yeah. Like, he has probably the most screen time in Return of the King, but I don't think that makes him the main character. Because the climax happens with Frodo. Likewise, in Arcane, the end of the last episode, the climax happens because of Victor, Jace, and Echo, weirdly enough. Echo has a ton of story arc and a ton of themes and stuff going around him in the second season, which make him kind of the Sam of the season 2, if that makes sense. Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah.
And then I believe Victor is Frodo.
No, wait, that doesn't make sense.
It's impossible to compare this because then that would make Jace Gollum.
Shouldn't Jace be Samwise then?
No, I think he's right in saying Echo is Sam. And again, it's not a direct comparison, but Echo is somehow the driving force outside of obviously Victor. He's had a theme where he doesn't really get his moment until episode 7 of both seasons, and then he just comes out of the woodworks for the final 2 episodes. And so it's really crazy. Even the hidden details. I went down a whole rabbit hole last week after we watched it together, which I don't think I mentioned that all 4 of us got together to watch at least the last episode. But one of the details that somebody caught, other people have rewatched it a number of times, is that Victor had those strands coming down into people's heads, and there were 3 strands coming down, one for Vi, one for Jinx, one for Echo, and Vi's hit her in the head. She got taken. Jinx, I think she has like quick move abilities, which you see that where sometimes she's a streak and she jumps to another spot, not necessarily teleportation. She just moves fast, and I think that's probably a reference to the game. But because of that, she dodged one of the strands, and that strand dissipated. And then the second strand got her. And then Echo's strand became her strand. And then that's why Echo, when he came back to the present, or when he came to the area, he didn't get taken by Victor's mind control. So that was a cool moment, cool hidden thing that I don't think everyone caught. But, and then that led to his epic, rewind ability that so cool. Yeah. Sorry, I want to get Will and Zach's ideas on season 2.
So I think the best way I can describe season 2 is using the analogy of the opening titles street, or the opening credits. Is that what they're called? Yes, the opening. Yeah, the opening credits for both seasons. When I first saw the opening credits for the first season and my first feelings towards the opening credits towards the second season, I think that pretty much encapsulates how I feel towards both seasons. But like when we sat down and I started watching the start of the second season, I was kind of hyped up because I'd seen the first season and I had like expectations. And that's not to say that the opening credits for season 2 are not bad in any regard, but I think if you compare them to the first season, they're not as good. Like the first one has like the statues that all are very unique, but they're also like being carved at the same time and has a very distinctive look. The second one was just kind of like people in like Greek clothing almost, and like okay, wow. I don't know, it was just less interesting and impactful and hyped up for me compared to what I had known. And so basically what I'm trying to say is that season 2 is good. Josh has said that it is good, but it's not as good as the original. And that I think is its biggest downfall, is that because I have seen the first season and because the first season is essentially perfect, you can't be perfection. Like how do you try to be perfect or be better than perfect when like you can't, it's really, really difficult to get, to get lightning in the bottle twice, so to speak. And so because like the first season was so good, you have expectations for the second season to be as good or better, or especially to be better, and you're hyped up for it. And because it's not, like, you're kind of disappointed because, like, well, I was expecting it to be this or this or this, and it wasn't. So I think that's the thing for season 2 is it's good. I have some gripes with it. I think there's certain things I don't really like. Okay, why did you do this? I have questions about this. And overall, like, it's a bit more mysterious, and they have like moving parts that I don't think were necessary, and the whole multiverse time travel thing was kind of like, okay, what's going on now? I don't really think that we needed that, but I don't think it's necessarily bad. But again, it's not as good as the first one, and that's kind of its biggest downfall, is that, like, you're trying to be better than something that people have been waiting for and hyped up and thought was like the greatest thing ever, and you're not. So it's really hard to do that. But again, season 2 is good. I'd even say it's great. But and I still enjoy it, but it's not as good of an ending as I would have preferred in some retrospects, and it's just hard to beat season 1 because that was so good. But again, it's still great.
So basically, its biggest downfall was having such a great start.
Yeah, like, for example, like if you had the quality of season 2 as, like, if Arcane season 1 had the quality of season 2, and then Arcane season 2 had the quality of Arcane season 1, would that be better? I would say
the quality would only go
yes.
up.
Yes,
it's an interesting idea.
Okay, I watched season 2 a second time this past week, and I will say, so I fully agree. Still, I do think season 1 is better because it's more emotional and it's, like, raw, like, it's the backstory. It's what's causing all of the current heartache in the second season, because people have matured in the second season, so it's not quite as raw emotional, or doesn't have quite as much raw emotion. But concepts and themes, I do think, are better in the second season. And that's also what a lot of critics are saying. Critics actually like the second season better. Is that right? On IMDb?
Yes.
I don't think it got under a 9 out of 10 for every single episode.
It's the only show to have a season where every episode's over a 9 on IMDb.
That's crazy.
It was a second time through. The multiverse made a lot more sense because a few hints that you get later in the season are really useful going into the beginning, because then just details make a little bit more sense. So I will say the second time watching it, it was so much more, like, thrilling on a thematic level. But first time is still a lot better because you get excited for, like, I don't know what's going to happen. That's kind of where the surprise factor is still there and makes it better on the first watch. But the second time it's like, oh, that's so cool because stuff makes sense now.
Well, and I watched through it again, and that definitely helps. But at the same time, having watched through it again, there's also like okay, but what about this and this and this, and that wasn't addressed. I think the other thing about season 2 that kind of irks me a little bit is that this is supposed to be the ending for Arcane. Like, now they're going to do like some other seasons or TV shows or whatever that are going to focus in the same universe on different characters, but like Arcane season 2 is said to be the ending of this story that they're telling here in Piltover and Zom with these specific characters. And so in that retrospect, having watched through it again, it does definitely help. But my critiques, I think, for the most part, still kind of stand with, like, the whole multiverse and time travel thing, and how, like, I'm going to ultimately say that it wasn't as necessary as I really think it needed to be. And I think I would have probably preferred if they had kind of kept it more lower scale, like they did in season 1. You can still do some crazy stuff, but maybe not that insane. I don't think was as beneficial. But then again, they did a fine job of that. And also, like, they opened a lot of questions in a can of worms and just do some stuff that I'm like, okay, where's the answer that we're going to get for this? And we don't really get that. Season 1 had the benefit of saying, I think season 1, did a much better job at keeping everything a bit more concise and, like, kind of explaining everything for the most part and wrapping most things up. They still had some things open, like, why isn't Bessa here? What's going on with Mel's sister? And, like, obviously the cliffhanger ending for season 1, like, what's going to happen there? But, like, for the most part, like, everyone kind of had their own little thing finished by season 1, and it was mostly kind of wrapped up for the most part. And in season 2, it just seems a bit, like, unnecessarily open in a lot of aspects.
Interesting.
With a lot of different details, and that's the kind of thing that irks me a bit more too about season 2. So yeah, and I can see, I guess.
Can you be a little more specific on the details? Because I
got.
I heard
he's
paper.
got the receipts.
I literally have. I have a Google Doc that's full of notes for this. Before we do this, we should probably let Zach go because I don't want to take up more time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, I've been reading up, and I have my books ready. So.
Wow, he's committed.
Wait, what is that book? I need to see it in full screen.
This is an official compendium too.
William's tag. So for those who are listening to this or watching it, William's tag underneath his name says "didn't do the research," and that couldn't be more false.
Yeah, it's only for our live recording. It's not saved, but yeah.
Well, that's only because of like one episode or whatever. I think because I
it was from Batman. When you didn't watch the movie that we were talking about.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
When you didn't watch the movie.
Where I was watching the film while we were doing the episode.
You know, it's really weird how he did this at this specific moment. Will, that's incredibly specific. Why would you bring that up? Oh, I just watched it.
But yes, I did do research for this one.
So I got some background information since this is my first Arcane episode.
That's true. It's true.
Recently inducted Nolan brother.
Speaking of Nolan Bros, here's a picture of us that we took together where we recreated the Thunderbolts poster.
Right,
and I actually love it. Especially, it's right there.
It's right here, guys.
I'm not going to put it there.
It's right there. Come on.
I'm not going to put it there just so you guys look like yourselves.
It's right here.
It's right there.
That looks really weird in outside of context for those who are somehow watching me in my room.
That one, I liked putting careful who you assemble because I didn't realize that was the tagline, and then I was like, oh, that's perfect for us. Anyways, Zach, go ahead.
Anyways, I guess first time I watched Arcane season 1 was with these.
It was with us,
fine gentlemen, and
yes,
a few other Mossberg siblings.
Yeah,
and that was my first experience with that, and then watching season 2 with first 3 episodes by myself, and then 4 through 9. Yeah, 4 through 9 with these gentlemen as well. Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed Arcane. Kind of as most of the rest of you already said, I think season 1 is better than season 2. Do we... Josh, were you disagreeing with that, or...
No, I was just defending season 2, but I still think season 1 is better.
Yeah, I think there can be a case made for season 2, but overall I would say season 1 is better. I think a big part of that too is, as we were saying, you know, when you go on a larger scale like season 2 did, it can really take away from your characters, which I think we really saw. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why it seems like Vi kind of took a backseat in this second season, because I feel like she doesn't have much to do with as big of a story as they told.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like wondering what like Hawkeye or Daredevil are going to do in this big multiverse story coming up in the MCU. It's like they're just dudes who hit things. It's like, what exactly are they going to do? And that's kind of like, I feel like was kind of like Vi's place for a lot of season 2. I mean, she has her personal stakes with Jinx and Warwick later, but I feel like overall, and Caitlyn obviously, but overall I kind of felt like she was the one who, I mean, she definitely had a arc in season 2, but I think it wasn't as notable as her arc in season 1. I definitely feel like, as you guys were saying, season 2 is definitely more of Victor and Jace's story, especially once you get past the first few episodes. And here's a fun detail I should add. When we watched episodes 4 through 9, I had been up since 4 a.m. that day.
I think you mentioned that.
I think I told you guys all that. And so especially like when we got to like the last 3 episodes, just with the mental state I was in, it kind of felt like a drug trip. It was a fun time.
And you know, like the whole like anomaly stuff, how that is like very
I was just
like that thing that I'm sure that doesn't help either, because that's very like psychedelic, with like the spirals and the infinite repetitions, and you're like,
dude.
He was tripping on no
in my
sleep.
sleep deprived state. I was just like, whoa.
Season 1 is totally a casual watch. Like you could probably watch each episode like a week apart, have the story develop naturally, whereas second season you need to be locked in. It's not a casual walk. It's you're running as soon as you hit the ground from the very start of the first episode of second season.
Well, I think after Act 2, like the first act, you could probably do it a little bit, but like after once you get to like the whole like time travel thing with like Jace suddenly showing up and then smashing Sallow with hammer, then you're like, okay, something's going on here. what happened? But okay, and then do you have anything else, Zach? Sorry if I'm interrupting.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I think, as I've said on the podcast before, I think endings and final entries can tend to be overly ambitious, and I definitely think Arcane Season 2 was overly ambitious. There's especially, introducing like the multiverse and time travel in like the third to last episode of your final season is kind of a big thing to do then when there's already so much going on. And I feel like there were things like the multiverse and that only get so lightly touched on. I feel like it should have been explored more than it was. But at the same time, I'm glad they didn't really go the same multiverse route as we see being so overdone today. But overall, I kind of disagreeing with Will, I guess. I would say I liked the ending. I like an open ending, especially with where we see Jinx. I like how it's more than even just open. I like how the ending was open to interpretation. Where, I feel like if you're just kind of casually watching it, you assume Jinx is dead at the end. But if you're actually
a fan
or paying attention to everything, you notice that she's alive with the pink streak, and then
she's dead.
Okay. Zach brought it up. Do you guys think Jinx is dead or not?
She's obviously alive.
Okay, I want her to be dead for specific character reasons, but I think that
because
she's
you
probably
want her
alive.
to answer for her crimes.
Because she's a war criminal. That's why you want her dead.
Okay. Hey. Okay, before we get into this, I have actually gone through. I didn't watch the second season. I watched the first season as well, or parts of it, and I literally have like a list here of all the people that Jinx has killed. Okay.
No.
Oh my goodness.
So, do you want me to do this right now? Do you want me to list her war crimes right now? I will.
William would be the person to find someone and murder them and be incredibly efficient at burying them.
William is like Black Widow in the first Avengers movie right now when she was like, he killed 80 people in 3 days.
Will, do you have a number? Because I don't want you to list every single person.
Let me see if I can quick add it up. Let's see if it's fine.
Is it on Excel?
Okay, as you add it, as you do simple addition, I think what it sounds like our consensus is, personally, as the four of us, which is technically a majority, is that we loved season 1 and we like season 2. Like it's both positive. We'll watch them both, but we watch season 1 twice.
Yeah, totally fair. Season 1 shot for the moon and hit it dead center. Season 2 shot and hit the moon, but kind of
and blew up the moon.
And it blew
and now
up
you can't enjoy the moon anymore.
You can't. Yeah. The more that I did watch second season, I enjoyed it more. But it's like comparing a 10 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. They're both great.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I'd have to watch season 2 again. I think. Now, again, actually, just now, Ellie and I got back from watching Interstellar, and there, the lady behind us, we left the theater, and she's like, "I still don't get it." And it's like, you got to watch it a second time. So I think before I cancel Netflix again, I got to watch it.
It took me like 4 times before I completely understood Interstellar, but now I think I do.
Yeah,
but that's not even.
I got it first try.
First try.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to do an Interstellar Revisited, and we can have Zach on that. Nice. But watching it in IMAX is so fun. Anyways, that's a topic for a Revisited episode.
Okay. All right.
William,
so it's somewhere between like 15 to 20 people. Okay. Now this is first season on screen. People, we can confirm that she like was like the direct, like either like murdered herself or like blew up a building. People were in there and they were counted as died in that. So, okay. So that's 15 to 20 people in the first season. I don't know how many people she has probably caused harm to and, murdered beforehand. In this season beforehand, so I'm just going to put that. But also, I'm just going to say two things. One is that I don't necessarily dislike how they ended it. I just don't like. I don't like the ending per se. I feel like the presentation of the ending could have been done better. That's kind of my arc with it. Is that like I think that having Jace and Victor consumed into sphere and disappear and whatever was going on there, don't know, is okay, fine. And like Mel's ending, okay, fine. Caitlyn and Vi, they're together, but that I'm not surprised at all at that. And Jinx dying, dead, different topic, but okay, that's whatever. And how all of that, I'm pretty much fine with that. I just kind of feel like when I was watching it the first time, I was like, that's how they're doing it. Like, I'm fine with how the characters ended up, but just the presentation of it felt like very sudden, very quick, and then we just end with a ship, and I was like, "What's the significance of the ship? Well, what's going on with the ship?" And yes, like, oh, Jinx said she was going to be on there, and
the streak, and then a pink, it go across the screen, go whoosh, she gone.
Because Powder said the thing in season 1.
Yeah. Okay, but the thing is, I'm going to say is like, if you're trying to make a connection to that, I feel like you could have been if you're trying to say that, may either be a bit more obvious or whatever. But I just don't like the presentation of the ending. Okay,
that's the point, because it's open to interpretation.
That's kind of the thing, but it's still fine. But I would have preferred like a different type of ending, maybe where they're like, where we could either explore just a bit more of what everyone's doing and then have a bit more catharsis for everyone. But that's okay. Okay, go Josh.
Okay, I fully understand. Everything is open-ended enough for it to not feel like a true resolve. It feels like it's resolving, not resolved. I watched an interview with one of the directors, and then I also watched quite a few other videos, and what it sounded like is their goal was to make the season be able to stand alone enough to where you wouldn't have to necessarily watch the first season. Now, you do have to, but if you were just craving the second season and you knew what happened in the first season, you could start in the second season and you'd be okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of their goal, because it sounds like they've confirmed that there's going to be more after, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted it to be resolved for the first 2 seasons and have it kind of end in a way that feels like, if you look past a ton of details, like Jinx hypothetically being gone or still alive, it could still end, and there's enough resolve for you to be satisfied stopping at 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then they've left it just a itty bitty tiny keyhole for them to open a door to more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think the more is going to be not more Arcane episodes, but more seasons of the same world in, I don't know what their world is called.
Runeterra.
Okay, thank you, William.
He's done his research.
He did do the research.
So I do think that they'll go to like Medarda's kingdom and tell us from there.
I'm sorry. Okay, I know this stuff, so I have to interrupt.
I would know it if I take a second to look at my notes, but I don't want to. I'll just have you correct me. They are going to tell more stories, and I don't know if supposedly teasing that Jinx is alive is going to pay off, or if it's just literally meant to be left. If it's literally meant to just be open to interpretation. I do think she's alive because, like we've said, there's a pink dash, which is similar to how she's zipped around, kind of teleporty, or at least has very high reflexes, as been shown in previous scenes. And one of the first lines of the entire show is Jinx saying, "I'm going to ride in one of those things one day." Mm-hmm. Powder then. And then the final shot is the airship flying away. I think it's cinema. It's poetry because it rhymes. Or what is George Lucas's quote?
That's a George Lucas quote. It's like
poetry. Okay, yeah. Well, then there's also insert the Scorsese meme.
Yes, I was gonna say I think they should just leave Jinx's ending where it's at. I think it's also kind of called back to her breaking the cycle earlier in the season of just kind of leaving in a sense. It I guess it kind of reminds me of the ending of Soul. For anyone who's seen that, where it's like
I forgot how it ended.
That's got a very open ending too. Where it's like you don't know the life he's going to live, but you just know he's going to live in a sense. And I think that's kind of where she's at. She's just going to live her life now. We don't know what that's going to look like, but that's doesn't matter in a sense. And she's just going to go live. And I think that's a good ending for her.
I think another comparison is in Inception with the spinning top at the very end, where it's like, is it falling or is it still up? I think that debate is like, is Jinx dead or is she not? Like, that's the kind of her having uncertainty on her awareness. That's resolved for her character because she kind of doesn't want people to know if she's alive or dead. She kind of just wants to be completely out of the picture. So that's resolved for her character, but not from our perspective. Like, we don't see resolve because we're just left with a question that isn't answered. But in us having a question, her story is resolved.
Yeah. I think something that's interesting as I look at my notes is that I wrote them 2 weeks ago. And it says, I said back then, why would they tease Jinx surviving if they aren't making any more Arcane? All the theories make sense, but I don't see the point. It's similar to the Vander situation. And we'll get to Vander in a second, what they did with Warwick and all that. But it's like, why would you go down that road if you could have made it more clear, I guess. Whereas with the Vander situation, it's like, you saw him die. It had a very strong, like, it's what gets you hooked. I anyone I'm introducing to Arcane, I tell them to watch through episode 3, and that will get them. And then they bring him back. And I feel like, we talk about it in a sec, I feel like that deadens his importance, the importance of his death. And with Jinx, I kind of, or at least I did side with Will here on making it more obvious. I did rewrite it, and maybe I'll put this in its own little video to see what people think. I suggest a final rewrite to make it more clear. Instead of Vi and Kate having their interesting conversation at the very end, it's instead revealed that Jinx survived. She's standing in the doorway and she says, "Hey sis." Vi runs to her and exclaims, "Jinx!" And Jinx says, "Not Jinx, powder." And her eyes turn from pink to brown again, cut to black.
Cinema.
Just credits. Cinema, absolute cinema.
That's cheesy to me. I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
I think it's cheesy.
Yeah, but
we want it.
It's way more.
That's what they are.
I think, okay, hypothetical 3rd season, it'd be awesome if they did callbacks and then there's Jinx sitting there fantasizing about what could have happened. And that's one of the things that plays at the very beginning, and then it just cuts to her, like, dozing off.
I think you mean Vi. Vi fantasizing about what happens?
No, I think it should be Jinx off on a distant land, like, I wish this is what I could have been able to do.
They would then confirm that she's alive.
Yeah. That she is alive. And then I think they left enough questions for there to be a 3rd season that still touches in the same world. I definitely think if they did go for a 3rd season, it would have to involve one of the characters of the first 2 seasons, or else no one would watch.
Probably Mel, which is, okay, this is kind of the thing that they've been teasing a little bit where, and this is where I can pull out my lore stuff.
Actually.
With the ending, you kind of like see like Mel like defeats her mother, and then like is a mage now, and she's the head of House Medarda, and there seems to be some sort of indication like the crow, the 3-eyed crow, that's Swain, who is the leader of Noxus, which is where Mel's from originally, where Mbessa, and that's where the Black Rose is. That's where they're from. And it seems to be like there might be some sort of civil war or some strife or something going on there where he's keeping an eye on what's going on. He's spying on her, and he's looking at, what's Jace's magic hammer gauntlet thingamajig. There seems to be some indication for going on with that. They could very well go with that. Or they could also do some other stories that have been possibly been teased. I just want to defend myself just a little bit. Again, I think you guys are making good points, but for me, as a partly it's my personality. I just like things to be more obvious. I'm not much for mystery stories and stuff like that. I'm like, just spit it out and say it. I don't like the whole like, oh, mumbo jumbo, we don't know. And just say it, please. That's a personal thing on my part. Still, though, I think that the ending was, if they wanted it to be more open-ended, I think they could have done a better job of making it more open-ended, because the indication that Jinx is alive is one single frame. You have to pause just right to see that streak. Caitlyn looking at the thing and seeing the vents, and when she smiles, it's not like she's smiling because she's hearing Vi singing, not because she's thinking, oh, Powder survived. She's not necessarily doing that, because I rewatched it and I was like, oh, that's what's going on there. And 3, it's just the ship. The final scene of Arcane is just a ship flying off in the distance, and like you'd have to remember from season 1, episode 1, the first part, that's to make any connection between the two. What I'm saying is that the theories probably stand. And again, I think that she probably is alive because, that's you can do more with the character. But if you wanted to make it more obvious that she's alive, like when I first watched Arcane with you guys, the thought that Jinx was alive was nowhere near on my mind. Like you make it a comparison to like some Nolan films, and that's what I was thinking about. It was like in a Nolan film, there's usually like a twist or whatever right at the end, but it's done in such a way that it makes sense and like you get it. It's like the realization feeling in a Nolan film, and I didn't have that at all when I watched this. I thought, oh, she's dead. Like that just makes sense. And so that's why when they're ending on a ship, I'm like, why is the last scene? I was more confused. Like, why are they ending the last scene on a ship specifically? Like, what I would have preferred was something like, you don't have to have everything happy, but I just would have preferred the editing done a little bit differently. Like maybe Echo given like more than just a very brief second of just sad. Like maybe like a conversation between him and Echo, just briefly, like recognize they've lost so much and they're sad. And something like a bit more substantial for each character, I would have preferred. And if you wanted to do the Jinx route and have her possibly be alive, maybe do something a bit more, but just like having like Arcane end specifically with just ship end. I'm like, what?
Well, cinema.
Yeah, like so like the ending itself was just like strange to me, which is why I don't like. That's why I say I don't like the ending. Not that I don't like the ending or how they ended it, but just like the way that it was presented in that sense.
I would say I think beyond kind of, as I already said, beyond just an open ending, it's really an open to interpretation ending. A lot like Inception, I would say. I mean, it's kind of up to you at the end of Inception whether they're still in a dream or not. And I think really at the end of Jinx, it's kind of Seth is disagreeing with me on something.
Yeah, well, like if you guys had never said that there's theories that Jinx was alive, I would have never have thought that Jinx would be alive.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's what you're supposed to think.
Yeah, but
that's the director's goal, is to make you think she's dead, but leave enough evidence for there to be her alive, so that in the next season, if they did bring her back, it would be totally possible because there's enough evidence that it's possible.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like from my perspective, the evidence that they're trying to sort of say that she is alive, and if she came back, like here's the evidence we can prove that, it just seems very flimsy and like just kind of random. And so again, that's kind of a bit of a personal thing, but it just that's kind of my thoughts towards it. But again, the ending is not bad per se. I like the ending, like how they mostly did it. Just I would have preferred some different ways they might have done it, but
So would you have liked more details on knowing whether or not she's dead for certain, or would you have liked no details and been completely in mystery on whether or not she's dead? And then in another season, if she did come back, then they did some exposition? Or would you prefer there be evidence and then you think she's dead? And then
I mean, I don't really care either way. It's just I'm still going to stand by the thing that I would prefer her being dead because I think that's better for her character, and I think it works better. I don't think she's dead because of because of meta reasons. I don't think she's dead in universe because why would you? Because poor sad Jinx, whatever. It's also because I'm not very sympathetic towards her. I'm sorry, and I think you guys knew that through watching it live. Like I'm not very sympathetic towards Jinx, and I'm sorry a little bit. And I actually have had some interesting thoughts about it towards Jinx and the whole theme of forgiveness, which I think is the main theme of Arcane 2. But as I will remind everyone, she is still a mass murderer, and I'm still like kind of like like, oh no, poor sad trauma girl, who like everyone just kind of seems to be like, oh no, she's had such a tragic backstory and so sad, and like, oh but she's cute and I can fix her. Like, nah.
This just in: William believes in capital punishment.
I can fix her, guys.
I can fix her.
William.
I was just like, okay, I just kind of want you to die. I'm sorry. I just like you. I just yeah. And so that's why I'm again, it's a bit of a personal thing towards me. I just am not very sympathetic towards her in some retrospects. Although I do think, and I didn't like her redemption arc per se, although I do actually like it now. But initially I didn't really like it.
Will is the judge, jury, and executioner.
That's what I'm saying, though. I mean, if you want her dead, she's dead. That's how I feel like the last episode's written. But if you want her alive, she's alive. I think they could have ended with Vi getting some indication that she's alive, whether that be like a letter,
like a token or something.
Yeah, something to give Vi hope that Jinx is alive. But I think it was for the best, and with them separated, I think. Well, for one thing, I just think it gives the story finality, which I think was the writers and directors' goals. But I think too, it's just her also escaping the world that turned her into a monster and finding a new life somewhere else, which I think was kind of her biggest goal. If you see her as alive, that's why she's flying away in an airship at the end, to find a new life separated from kind of, because it's more than just Silco that turned her into a monster. I would say, Vi had some role in that. I think all the relationships around her kind of crafted her into who she ended up being. So I think she's just trying to find that new life now at the end.
Yeah. I think comparing it to Inception is really good because as we've had many years to look back on Inception, the whole topic about it, did the top fall over, is the exact same. If you want it to fall over, you can believe it fell over. If you want it to be a dream and it didn't, you can believe that too. But you cannot deny that there are other things that have gone on and are hinted at that prove that it is a certain way. One being, it does a little wobble at the end. That's kind of artistic thing.
Yeah.
But things like Christopher Nolan revealing that any scene that Michael Caine is in is real life. Michael Caine is not in any dream sequences in Inception. That's a meta thing that we know.
I really wish Michael Caine wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, that's a real giveaway.
Yeah.
But because he said that, we know that the top fell over because it's real life. But that's the same thing. Like there's things that point to the truth, even if the truth is ambiguously portrayed in the final moments of the media. So
I don't think there's been any writers, directors, or actors revealing whether Jinx had.
Well, there was a video of the actors.
Oh, there was
answering questions, and they said they got the question, "Is Jinx dead?" And they're like, "Well," I think I messaged everyone. I was like, "It's a I'm not the werewolf" moment from Andrew Garfield. It's like, really. See, you're not telling us everything.
I think that's okay compared to them actually answering the question.
Well, and that's like the big thing for me is like if Jinx had like actually, if the story was that Jinx was going to actually die, they would have probably put him to like, oh, this is like fulfilling her character arc and blah blah blah. They would have gone like that. They didn't do that, and so for me that basically confirms in my mind that they probably have the intention, or at least kind of that their idea is more likely that Jinx is alive, which again is not necessarily bad, but I would have preferred not. But
yeah. Okay, well, we've talked plenty about this topic. Let's gush over what's so great about season 2. There is
the dialogue.
The dialogue.
Josh has been dying for this dialogue, man.
Okay. Josh,
guys.
Give me a second, Josh.
Go ahead,
I'm going to set the stage with a phrase that I heard. I don't remember where. Arcane respects the viewer's intelligence.
Yes.
It does not pretend you are an idiot like a lot of movies do. Making stupid jokes when it doesn't need to, saying things instead of showing you things, and making it beautiful and using animation to its fullest extent. That's why I think it's so good. I think both seasons show this, and the writing, like Josh will gush about in a moment, is well done and expects you to put a little brain power into it, and that's fine. I think that makes it more enjoyable. Josh, you need to let it out.
Okay,
he's doing that.
The best scene that I can think of for the first season that demonstrates their use of dialogue is when Victor and Jace are having a conversation on top of that waterfall that Victor is just about to kill himself over. Just purely using body language, they're able to show who is like what they're thinking about. So Victor says, you have to destroy it. It just being the pronoun game in a way, like we don't know what it is. And Jace looks at the hammer thinking it's like, oh, I need to destroy the weapons that is coming from it. But Jace, or the weapons that are coming from Hextech. So that's Jace's thoughts process. But then Victor corrects that by saying it's the hex core. You need to destroy the hex core. So then, like, you understand where Jace's mind is. It's like, oh, he's convicted about using these weapons, and he hasn't done anything about it. Whereas Victor is convicted about the hex core, and he now understands how dangerous it is. The same sort of thing is done so much in the second season. I'd say more so than the first season. I think the dialogue and the story, like show don't tell, is better in the second season. Like, they've mastered it. I wish that I could give you a very specific example like the first season, but I just think of Victor in his entirety. Like, every single line of dialogue he has in the second season is nuts. Like, think of the very last... hang on, I gotta look it up. I want to say it word for word.
Is it his moment with Jace or something?
Yeah.
Also, I'm just gonna say on the topic of Victor, it kind of annoys me, and you can probably edit this out, but it kind of annoys me that everyone's doing like the whole like Jace and Victor thing when we literally know that it's not.
They're not gay. They're bros.
I know it's just kind of annoying, and also because like rip Jace and Mel, because like that just like we got like one scene and then like okay, they're gone. Oh, okay. I guess that ship burned and died quite literally.
I mean, Caitlyn and Vi just seemed like friends at the end of season 1.
Yeah,
sure.
We'll talk about that in a sec. Josh,
okay.
You cooking?
First season, he also said, in the pursuit to do great, we failed to do good.
Ooh.
I love that
Dude,
line.
that was like his whole season 2 arc. Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. My word, that is his whole season 2 arc.
Josh, I'll make your brain explode for you.
Where is it? Hang on. No, I had a list of all of them.
Well, if you don't,
we'll come back to him.
If you got a second, actually, I got like 2 or 3 quotes I actually kind of want to mention too, because just in regards to dialogue.
Just do 2. We got to keep things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's really only 2 that I really need. Let me quick find it. But there's one that I really like where I think it's in and like in episode 4 or something like that, where Mbessa is talking to Caitlyn and she's talking about like the hurt and the anger she feels towards Jinx, who killed her mother. And she says, and she's kind of talking about, like, this wound's going to keep festering and growing. But she says,
oh, maybe I underestimated you. Maybe you have the strength I do not. To forgive and trust in tomorrow.
And I really love that, both as like a character moment, but also like just for what it means in and of itself, like having the strength to forgive and trust in tomorrow. Like that is, I think, a very interesting quote, and also has some good truth to it. And on a similar topic for like forgiveness theme, which I think we should really talk about sometime, maybe not in this episode, but at least in another one, which is
the greatest thing we can do in life is find the power to forgive.
And I find it extremely ironic that Silco was the one who says that. No, it's Parallel Silco, but that's extremely ironic. Yeah. That's like meeting Adolf Hitler and saying racism is bad. Like that's just like it's like just one of the things where like
it's against his character.
Okay. But I also that's again very true, and I think that perfectly summarizes kind of the main point, or one of the main themes, at least for Arcane season 2.
Josh, did you find it?
Okay, I did find it. And I loved this whole, so towards the end, it's a lot of dialogue, so I'm not going to read all of it, but the whole idea is that you're pursuing perfection, and the pursuit to perfection, it's never a destination story. It's always just working and working and working, and you're never going to get there. And the line is,
I thought I could bring an end to the world's suffering. But when every equation was solved, all that remained were fields of dreamless solitude. There is no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit.
That line, I think, is bars. And the whole scene where Victor is telling Jace about, like, he was the one on the top of the mountain that gave him, like, the weird wild rune magic hammer and stuff like that. Like, that whole scene with him dropping every single rune and, like, this is the one that ended up working. That was really, really cool.
Yeah.
That was well brought up between both of them. And then Jace also just saying, I just want my friend back, or I just want my, like,
partner,
that, like, my shoulders dropped when I watched that scene, because it was so wholesome and fulfilling in an end for Victor and Jace.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, Victor is speaking to himself through Jace, which is kind of the whole point. Like, he's saying, like, you know, you're the anomaly of sorts. You're the only person who can get to me, and so that's why I'm constantly focusing on you and trying to change the dynamic so that you can speak to me, so that I can speak to you. And it's like the whoa 3D chess type of movement, and just like the whole, like,
3D chess is just normal chess.
4D chess movement, whatever. Sorry. It's complicated to me, okay. But like, yeah, like that whole scene, like, where they're like, and, like, you know, Victor has, like, that whole realization, and then, like, they say, like, you know, we're in this together, we're sticking together, and it's like, bro, I know that you lost your girlfriend and now you're sad about it, but don't do this, man. It's like, unironically, that's actually all of Arcane season 2.
Okay, I've got one more line that I also think is just awesome. Also from Victor, he says,
It's inescapable. Humanity.
Our very essence.
Our emotions. Rage. Compassion. Hate. Two sides of the same coin. Inextricably bound. That which inspires us to our greatest good is also the cause of our greatest evil.
like, he's straight up, like, preaching to these people just casually. Like, he has, in the way that he's also just so eloquently spoken, it seems like, oh, he's got an understanding that we don't. Is Victor right? But then Jace's speech, it's like, you always strive to be perfect, but gave up your flaws that made you you in the end. And now I just want my brother back, or I just want my friend back.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because Victor had so many flaws because he was dying. He had a bad leg, he had a bad cough, and he fixed those. And then he went too far. He started to decide that other people needed him. And that's the comment that I have about Victor here. And we'll probably get to him in a separate episode. But in Act 1, I commented that Victor was turning into a Jesus figure. Ellie and I watched that together. And it seemed as though he was turning into a Jesus figure at the end of episode 3. He was like, people were coming to him. He looked like, they made him look like it. But obviously that didn't turn out because Victor's flaw was that he turned from helping people who came to him for help in episode 3 to choosing and deciding for everyone that they need his help. He decided for everyone what was best instead of leaving it to free will. And so then you kind of take a turn at, well, free will exists. And so he took that away. That's what diverted him from being the savior figure to being the antagonist. And again, it still leaves some area for, is he right? And those are the best villains. Is this bad guy? Is this antagonist actually right? And I don't know. And it's hard because there's no good guy in Arcane. Everyone's bad. Everyone's morally wrong. And you just got to pick a side, basically. Just so interesting.
That's good storytelling.
Well, Victor's whole thing is essentially, especially, I think we should really talk about like the symbology, like the whole like Jesus aspect of that. Maybe not in this episode, maybe in another one. But that's also very interesting because Victor's whole thing is kind of reminiscent of the problem of suffering / the problem of evil paradox that's often railed against God, and like how can there be a good God, which is essentially the idea like how can there be an ultimate, all-powerful, all-knowing good God when there's so much evil and suffering in the world? Because if he's all-powerful, then shouldn't he? And if he's all good, then shouldn't he therefore be able to stop all suffering and all evil? And that's not quite the exact same thing. Victor's whole thing seems to essentially be emotions, or maybe just kind of free will in general, but he seems to be harping more on emotions and imperfections, which our emotional capacities is what causes he recognizes that it does good, but he also recognizes that it does evil. And if he wants to prevent suffering and evil, then he needs to essentially take over everyone and prevent them from being able to enact on their emotions. But then the ultimate endpoint for that is that he realizes eventually that, well, there's nothing to do now. Like you just like I mean, there's no driving force for humanity. We're just like, again, fields of dreamless solitude, because like, well, there's nothing to do. And he realizes that in and of itself is like, just like, there's no prize here now. It's not worth it. And so that's why he wants to go back and prevent himself from doing it, from stopping the glorious evolution. And so the whole argument between Jace and him and Victor and himself at the same time is one of like, should we be pursuing perfection? Should we essentially be eliminating what makes us human in order to achieve something that's good? Because like if everyone's a robot, it's essentially the individuality versus free will versus like collectivism type of an idea. And Arcane ultimately ends on the argument for yes, humanity can do terrible things, but at the same time we have the capacity for doing good as well as doing evil, and that's what makes us human, and we should accept that, defend that, protect that, and embrace that, because that's what makes us human. And that's also like a very common anime trope. I think what is it called? Evangelion focuses on that, and lots of other animes focus on that, where it's like, yo, humanity does evil because emotions, therefore destroy emotions, and therefore good. But then it's like, oh no, now we can't do anything. Sad. Let's not do that. Individuality. Yeah, it's essentially that whole debate, which is very interesting. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on there.
That I'm so glad that I guess it wasn't me, it was Reddit. We can thank Reddit. I'm so glad Reddit reminded me about, in the pursuit to do great, we failed to do good, because that perfectly summarizes this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like
100%.
Victor is just shooting for greatness, and in shooting for being amazing, being perfect, he's leaving every ounce of good behind to be something that's truly neutral. Amazing, but neutral. There's nothing in it. There's no soul. There's no heart. There's no emotion. It's inhumanely boring.
Oh, I was thinking you might go inhumanely beautiful, because it's also visually beautiful, and it's beautiful to desire that deity level that he attains, and yet that's not what he needs. That's not what other people need. Yeah. He shouldn't have that power, and it's like we work together. Immorally beautiful, I guess.
Yeah,
like it has no right doing that. It has no right being. He has no right becoming what he did, I guess. Also, that's Heimerdinger's whole shtick from season 1 is that you need to destroy it because it's dangerous. So that's
and okay. Let's just say Heimerdinger was right the entire time. Like, I'm gonna say that's another kind of critique I have for this, because I liked the thing they had going for season 1, which is, okay, you kind of have the traditionalist versus the progressivist, not in our modern sense of the understanding, but like in the more general term of what those in the more general meaning of what those terms mean, which is like you kind of have Heimerdinger, who has literally seen the Rune Wars and what magic can do. And so he's like saying like we shouldn't pursue this, and you have like these new people who haven't seen that, don't have that history, but they do have like we need this because of XYZ reasons, and those are valid reasons, and they can do a lot of good things with Hextech, and I like that argument in the debate they had with it. And with season 2, it's like no, Heimerdinger was right all along, and Hextech is just like it literally causes anomalies, and it's going to cause wild runes just by existing in reality, it's like basically crystallized magic, and that's like warping reality itself, and it's just negative in and of itself. And so I think that basically just kind of like makes the entire argument beforehand moot, about that whole interesting debate, and just like again, like Heimerdinger was entirely right then. Therefore, like you really just like all of this could have been avoided. Like we literally see this in episode 2 when like there's no hex tech and the world's kind of a better place. Now, not necessarily just because of that, but like there's no hex tech and like the world is kind of a better place. Like you don't need it to make a good reality. So
sure.
You know, it really comes down to the perfection versus humanity. You know, and I think that kind of goes with I don't want to be heretical with what I'm saying next. I'm going to tread very lightly here.
I'll be listening.
I think with sin, okay? Sin. No, yes. I am
continue.
Oh, no, he's got a knife.
Josh.
I think the reason for sin is that, you know, God didn't just want perfect robots. He wanted people who chose good and chose him. I don't know how heretical it was that I just said that. I don't think
I don't think you're far off.
Okay.
It's not that he wanted us to sin or wanted us to be good. It's that he wanted us to be free.
Yeah.
To have free will.
Yeah.
And yet our free will ended up with us being captives in sin. But yeah.
I think that
I see where you're going.
I think kind of a good way to understand that whole topic, and this is a very difficult and nuanced and there's way too much time that we can go into this, in which we will not be in this podcast. There's too much to go into this, but which again, like you're talking about like the free will versus the problem of evil and that whole debate. And I think that a good way to kind of just understand it is using this analogy. Imagine that you have this an incredible painter who creates this painting. It's elegant, it's beautiful, it's just everything. It's like the perfect painting. Okay, picture that in your mind, and then imagine that he has his children who are allowed to go into this gallery, and they have like paintbrushes, and they just do whatever they want, and they kind of wreck the painting. Okay, they splatter all over it. They're kids, they're not very good with, you know, painting and anything at all, and they spread paint all over it. It covers up the painting, and like you can see a glimpse of the beauty within it, but it's not. It's marred. It's not as beautiful. And the painter comes in afterwards, and he sees what has happened, and rather than destroying that painting, what he does is that he spends meticulous time remaking that painting and adjusting it with the things that the children had like done with it, and making it even better and more beautiful and more grand, and reshaping it with despite or even because of the things that were already done to it. I think that's kind of the best way you can understand the story of creation and the Bible and reality in and of itself, is that what God made was good. We read this in Genesis.
Yeah.
And humanity was given a choice because God is a loving God and he's a just God, but he doesn't want us to just love him because that's like, we have to. He wants it to be a choice. And we made a choice, and we ultimately, Adam and Eve, they chose sin, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And Adam and Eve, they chose sin. And because of that, every person is born a sinner and they commit sins in their lives. And that's not good. But and creation is marred, it's cursed. But despite that, and perhaps in some case because of that, that might be a little heretical there, but God is still using that for his ultimate glory, to bring ultimate glorification to himself and to redeem this earth. And he did that through, Christ, through the incarnation, through the crucifixion and the resurrection, and that entire sequence going on there. So I think that's kind of, if that helps you, Zach, hopefully, but that's kind of what's going on. I think a good way to kind of compare this to the Christian worldview, where we understand that this world is sinful, that humanity can do terrible things because of our free will, but we also have the ability to choose to do good things. And that is what makes our good choices more impactful, because we have the capacity to not do them. But because we choose to do them, they have even a greater impact. And by doing them, we are recreating the universe into a greater ultimate masterpiece. And that's also a very Tolkien-esque idea, where Tolkien views himself not as a creator, but as a sub-creator, where there is God, the heavenly creator, who made everything, and humanity kind of wrecked it with our sin. But as being sub-creators, we can help in the process of recreating and reevaluating the entire universe into something again beautiful and magnificent through the working of God's plan.
And I think there's the obvious connection I'm making here is with Victor and like literally wanting to turn everyone into perfect robots. And I think there's a beauty in humanity, emotion, and us choosing to do good that I think God saw, and that's why he gave us free will. And that's kind of why and that's kind of what Victor sees at the end too. He sees a perfect world is an empty world in a sense. I mean, I know one day we will be living a perfect world. That's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about our world as it is now. Where was I?
In a world of finites, it's impossible to be perfect because everything has to come to an end. Our hope is in something that doesn't end, and everything is infinite, not finite. So perfection is possible, but in this limited world, perfection is impossible, and that's the problem Victor is coming to. Like, yes, I can make everything perfect, but in everything being perfect, we have to have just a completely neutral life. And that life will have to exist without anyone in it, because with people in it, then there's flaw.
Well, and the other thing too about Victor, I think if you kind of take a cosmological point of view, Seth, I'm sorry, but this is really interesting to me, is that Victor is someone who was human, who is trying to become perfect, and he's trying to make everyone the same as him. Like it's in the sense where I know what is necessary, and so I'm trying to recreate everyone in my image to be perfect like me. The problem is that he's human and therefore he is flawed. So his idea of perfection is therefore flawed as well. And so therefore, by spreading his quote unquote perfection, he's essentially spreading a flawed vision of perfection. And I think, again, if you compare this to the Bible, it's the idea that when at the end of the story, it's not that we can't choose to not love God. It's that our character and our nature is going to be transformed and renewed by Christ himself. Which is the point of being a Christian. Like, you are changed and transformed. Like, you are not, your sin nature is put away. And so your nature itself is changed, but you still have free will. But your will itself, the free will that you have, is changed. And so you don't have the desire necessarily to do what you once did in your sinful nature. And so the thing about Victor is he's trying to remove your nature itself, your free will. Whereas the point of Christ coming is that he's trying to change and transform your will itself. So you have that. That might be a little weird and gobbledygooky, but I think it's kind of interesting where Victor's trying to remove free will, and versus in Christianity, it's you're changing your nature in and of itself through God, not because you can't do it yourself. But you're not losing your free will, but you are changed in it.
Okay, we got really philosophical. Josh.
I'm just gonna warn y'all.
Yeah.
I have to leave in like 10 minutes so that I can make it to a end of this semester.
You said you could leave at 9:30.
His time.
At 9:30?
Our time.
I said at your time?
Never mind. I thought you said 10:30 your time.
10 to 10:30. 10 to 10:30. But I still have to take a shower and get ready. So
okay. Well, I just
want to warn you.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the fun stuff, and we got philosophical again. I'm going to go through some of my cool realizations, the things that were hidden in Arcane. Echo's dance was 4 FPS, which is referencing the 4 seconds that he can go back each time with his machine. Gold.
Also, additionally on that, sorry to cut you off, but since each frame is like for 1 second, he just wants to stay in that. So if he were to go back 4 seconds, he would still be with Jinx. So it's also like shadowing his desire to just stay in that timeline.
Yeah. That's good. I was kind of blown away when I realized that Silco knew the girls. I think I glossed over that first season. At least he knew
their mom.
Felicia.
their mom, Felicia, and
What's her name really, Felicia?
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, it is Felicia.
Oh, bye,
But
The first episode.
they knew each other, and at the very least, he knew that she was pregnant and had these kiddos. So when Jinx is crying in Silco's arms, it's not like they were family friends, but he realizes who she is.
Yeah.
And is not just some stranger. I always saw episode 3 of season 1 as he's just a stranger, but it's because he knows her, at least knows of her. I wanted to share this. The evolution of Jinx's hair is reflecting those that she looks up to, sort of. And so in the opening scene, it's either because her mom just cuts their hair the same, or because you could say it's because she looks up to Vi. When she's a kid, she emulates her mom, her mom's hair with the braid ponytail and some loose hairs. And then she splits. She still has the braid referring to her mom, but then she has like the hanging over her face like Silco did, which was a reveal in season 2 where he had that same style. And then she's completely unraveled her sense of self. Who is she now? Mm-hmm. So she took out all her braids and it's all over the place. And then she thinks she has to be like Silco. That's when she has like the inner monologue with her, with the not Silco, the image in her brain. And then at the very end, she cuts it to look like Vi again. So she's back to looking up to her sister. And that's just so meta, I guess.
It's like poetry.
It rhymes.
Here's another one. Huck.
Tua.
Yeah, because he's the one that he's the first one to be transformed and then dies.
Yes, Huck goes through a lot of transformation, from being in Vander's bar to being a shimmer addict.
Oh, that guy's got a name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know
and then he
name.
becomes the first one that Victor heals.
Yeah,
and then this post reveals that he's the one who attacked Jace in the council room because of his designs on his shoulder and chest. So that was just another detail that almost nobody caught. But with and then the other thing I was going to say is that the art style took a jump for sure. Yeah. The charcoal scenes for the funeral, I believe, were actual charcoal on paper with the characters animated in front of it. Singe taking away Vander's memories was just burning watercolor. Oh, cinema. Yeah, absolute stuff.
The whole thing with Warwick, Warwick's whole thing was great too.
And Isha's scene.
Yes.
Also, Jinx meeting Isha.
Yeah, we should talk about Isha.
Yeah. Okay, give me 1 second. Comparing season 2 to season 1, after I've ranted a little bit about the visuals and the Easter eggs and all that, what scenes stand out to you in the same way that Echo and Jinx from season 1, that fight, or the Guns for Hire scene, or the end of episode 3, or Silco at Vander's statue? All of those scenes are things we can point to in season 1. Besides maybe episode 7 being the alternate universe that stands out, I don't think there's as many memorable moments in season 2 as season 1.
I thought Vi and Jinx's one-on-one at the end of episode 3 was pretty iconic.
But
it wasn't as wow factor.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't. But the only thing I can truly remember is they did the pose from the opening of season 1. Yeah. So you can present more options, but I just think that that's telling about each season, that the episode, or that there's way more memorable moments from season 1.
Mm-hmm. I think Echo in the Echo scene in the finale where he saves the day is that's a big standout.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I also will say the dance scene between him and Echo is
her and Echo.
Jinx.
Her Jinx and Echo. We'll just go with both of their names. Echo and Jinx and their dance, like in that alternate universe.
Josh wants to talk about Isha before he goes.
I wanted to talk
I think
about
we
Isha
might
too.
That too, but I want Josh to get his, and we might go after you leave as well.
Well, we could just like briefly talk on her quickly, and then like in another episode talk about her more fully.
Oh, we could.
I also think we've already done basically just themes and concepts. Maybe we did a themes and concepts and then did characters. Because the only character we've really talked about is Victor.
I think just because as a concept of the story, as the main antagonist, not as...
Yeah.
We could probably skip him in future episodes, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Isha, quick and snappy.
Best supporting actor I've ever seen written, and she doesn't say a word.
Oh, supporting character, you mean?
Yeah, the best supporting character.
I don't think she had like one line, so I think there's only one line
Yeah.
for the actress to say.
I'm thinking of another memorable scene for me, but definitely not as wow factor as some of the first season, is the moments before Jinx met Isha. Is a song and kind of a monologue of what's happening in the Undercity, and it gave me a perfect understanding of what is happening in the Undercity, and it was exactly show don't tell, because I saw that, it looks like there's 3 people that are still in the seats. It seems as though they would probably want to have control over Silco's seat because Silco's gone. So then you see exactly that. You see like flashes of different looking different groups fighting, and you could tell that they're different groups because of the way that the character designs, where it's like, they're obviously together. They're looking angrily at each other. They're fighting. They both want power in the Undercity. So it's no longer a civil war between Piltover and the Undercity for a nation of Zon. It's just a fight over Silco's seat. And then you see that, and Jinx isn't doing anything in this. Like, she's walking through the crowds. She's just doesn't want anything to do with it. And you kind of understand the state of like where she is with all of these wanted photos. No one knows where she is. And then Isha comes along to be a rock for her, because in the moments of just so much uncertainty and like she's got nothing to cling to, Isha's right there as soon as she needs her. And that's why she attaches to her so well.
Let me throw mine in quick. Isha is meant to put Jinx in the same position that Vi was in season 1, episode 1 through 3, being the big sister. Isha even makes a leap of faith that she almost falls, like Powder did in the opening scene of season 1. But instead of having Vi to save her and pull her up like Powder did, Jinx cushions Isha's fall. Isha as a new character, and possibly taking another step further as a deaf girl, brings something into the equation that is very strong: objective, observable fact. She sees Jinx not as a former Powder or a failed Jinx, but as a role model, a protector, a strong friend, and a smart warrior. Jinx is battling with her identity like she did at the end of season 1, but Isha just loves her as a friend, partially because of reliance and survival, but it's the same type of love that Vi had for Jinx in Guns for Hire, where she puts aside every reason Jinx thinks that she shouldn't be lovable and is loyal to her. Jinx has a narrative for what this crazy persona that she's turned into is supposed to play out, and that's what she's talking about at the end of episode 3 in season 1. She's like, that's not how it's supposed to happen. And Isha is saving her from Vi destroying her. Yeah. And it's because Isha has that love that doesn't have the mentality, the narrative that Jinx has made for herself, or that the world has made for Jinx. She just sees Jinx or Powder or whatever. Isha doesn't play into that literally because she cannot hear it. And I think that's so good. There's a video from Schnee, who's done a ton of Arcane videos now, that I'll put in the description. He's got great analysis.
Isha also just takes out all of the other voices in Jinx's head.
Yeah, that's what it was.
You notice that that's one thing that I didn't notice, but Michael, my girlfriend, did. She pointed out, it's like, Isha's gone, now the voices are back. Like, not only is Isha just kind of what she needs, but she also quiets down everything in Jinx's mind, because this one person is just an ear to listen, even though she can't listen very well. The other voices in her head go away, because now she's got a sense of duty, because now she's acting as an older sister. She's got to lock in. Like, there's no room for the other voices, because it's like, Isha's here. Let's just, we're here, like a very grounding personality Isha is, even though she doesn't have much going on with her.
I'm pretty sure she was mute and not deaf.
No. She's definitely deaf, because there was somebody who does lip reading who talked to Schnee, and she's like talking about her mannerisms that they animated into her character to be like watching her mouth during some scenes, and then some concept she misses because she's not looking at Jinx. I think one of them is when Warwick gets freaked out by the sizzling iron or something. Isha doesn't know what's going on. She goes and like comes up to him, and she's like, what's going on? Because she saw him roar, but she didn't hear the sizzle. So yeah, she is deaf.
And because she's deaf, she doesn't know how people talk, and so she can't speak. because that takes time and effort. I'll just briefly say Isha was great. I didn't really care about her as much compared to other characters.
Hot take.
Well,
so I think we've come to a conclusion that William is heartless in this episode.
All right, guys, thanks for listening or watching.
William does not have a heart. That's the conclusion I've come to.
Well, okay. Like I'm sad. Like, okay, you're a kid. Okay, I'm sad that that you're in this situation. That I'm glad that you got somebody, but at the same time, the person you're looking up to is Jinx. So I'm like, well, okay. Yeah.
I felt like she was my younger sister.
Okay, that's true.
That's how connected I felt.
I don't know. But the thing that was interesting for me about Isha is that for me, to me, it seems more likely that the relationship between Jinx and Isha is kind of parallels a bit more between Silco and Jinx, because Silco was not somebody who wanted to be a father or who had like this weird, or Silco was someone who had like this weird relationship with Jinx where like he kind of adopts her, but he didn't really plan on doing that. And like, he's not exactly like, I wouldn't say like the best original father material, but he definitely shows that he truly does love Jinx, and he realizes that. And his kind of his arc in part throughout season 1 is learning that he does actually truly care about Jinx, and he will not give her up, even for his own ambitions that he's been trying to do for years. And Jinx is kind of the same way, where like she obviously was not planning on becoming a bigger sister of sorts, but Isha just like literally just falls into her life. And then she takes her on as like somebody she's going to care for, and she changes because of that. And I think it's almost like a more positive version in that sense. But it just kind of reminds me a bit like the relationship between her and Silco and her and Isha, and how that dynamic leads them to change and have a realization. And like at the end, like they realize that they like Jinx realizes immediately that she cares about Isha. But I just think that's an interesting kind of connection between the two of them, how they're both unexpectedly adopting people for some reason, and that changes who they are in some areas. Silco less so, but Jinx a lot. But also like it leads to a difference in their character and how they grapple with that and their own identity and what they want and their goals and things like that.
I'm glad you said that very briefly.
Sorry.
Guys,
Zach,
I should let you know, I listened to like Isha's song 2 hours ago, and I was tearing up, dude.
You need to look up the English translation.
I have.
Okay. When we watched it, I swear we were listening to the English translation, because every time I've seen that clip, it's in French. No. But I swear for certain,
it's not in French.
Nope.
Or whatever.
It's in
Japanese or something.
Okay, but like when we watched it at your house, wasn't it in English? I swear it was. I feel like it was, man. Maybe I'm tripping out.
The Echo and Jinx dance was French, but besides that,
which is another.
Anyways, I felt so connected to her. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I assume, because as a child, you don't expect the child character to die because they're a child. So maybe that's why I felt like I could be connected to the character. And then I would say, agreeing with Seth, I think the most direct correlation with her and Jinx is with Vi and Powder. Because all Powder wanted to do is make Vi and everyone else proud because of just how close they were. And we see that happen too with Isha and Jinx, with all the flashbacks during that scene and everything. We see just how much that Isha cares for Jinx and just what she would do to care for her, and how far that she would go for Jinx. And I think it's interesting how much of a parallel there is there, with Powder. She thought making those hex core bombs would make Vi proud and everything, but it just ended up killing everyone. And then with Isha, she thought loading that gun up with the hex orbs would make Jinx proud, but all it ended up doing was killing herself. So I think that was... I just blew Josh's mind.
No, sorry, my brain was zoning out and I was thinking of a different scene.
Oh, okay.
But keep going. I didn't mean to have a reaction.
Yeah, I felt very connected to Isha, and I'm still processing every day that she died.
Still grieving.
Still grieving.
Yeah.
It comes in, I honestly think about it like once a day at this point. I'm just like, wait, he should have died. That was emotional.
Yeah.
So sad.
Okay, Josh, I don't know if you have time for two. I have two more topics. I don't know what you have time for. You got to go.
I'll stay a little bit longer. I'll just get ready faster.
Do you want to talk about Vander or Vi and Caitlyn's relationship?
Vi and Caitlyn, because I want to get it over with.
Well, I think it's so interesting talking about it.
I have a super quick observation. Do you remember in the first season when Victor coughs and he coughs blood while he's in the giant hex core at the top? Like there's a scene where he's coughing and then he gets some blood on the railing and then it also falls down.
Yeah.
That blood is there in the second season and that's what causes the wild rune magic because it's reacting with his blood. So that's why the hex core was unstable because of the cough of blood that Victor had in the first season.
Dang.
That's how detailed it was.
That's a detail. Wow. I was wondering why it went crazy and started corrupting. Yeah, that's cool.
Because of that cough of blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry,
boom.
I put that together. That felt really cool.
Yeah.
But no. Vi and Caitlyn.
Okay. Vi and Caitlyn. The China release of the show was very interesting. It had all of Vi and Caitlyn's relationship cut out.
Yeah.
It was odd cuts in the show. It was differently rendered scenes where they just turned off the layer for that character. So when they were leaning against each other, they just turned off. I know they turned off the Caitlyn layer, and then she wasn't there in that scene. It's very odd, but it shows that it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
Anytime that so they seem to write the story in such a way that they were so intertwined. Mm-hmm. It seemed like it would play an important role. But because they edited it out of the China release, which I'm very curious why China is very strict about this stuff. But having the lesbian relationship edited out shows that they know what they're doing. If they were a heterosexual couple, they wouldn't have had to cut it out. And the fact that they could for the China release shows that it's unnecessary. And when you take that out, what do you have? A perfectly good show. It's not written into the show. It's not technically a main point, and it did kind of ruin our watching experience.
Yeah.
But it's just so odd having that that being pushed down your throat while you're watching it, and also just having it be the one thing that they keep harping on. And
I do think there's one redeeming quality about it is Jinx, the reason she's suicidal is because she has nothing going for her. She's severed her entire connection with Vi, and she's lost Silco, she's lost Vander, she's even lost her reason to be in the Undercity because she's wanted everywhere, and all she's going to do is get killed if she steps outside. That's why she's suicidal. Vi doesn't really have anything to live for other than to just fight as well. She doesn't have an Isha keeping her alive. She needed a little bit more purpose, and I think she found purpose in Caitlyn. And even she got purpose when she got her position as one of those special forces people. She got some purpose there. But then she got more. Once that was done, she got purpose from Caitlyn again. I do think it still would have been just as effective if they were friends. Mm-hmm. Like if they became new sisters. I lost my old sister. I got a new sister. And I think that would make so much more sense for the first season of Jinx being jealous of Caitlyn.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say.
Because it was very obvious Jinx was jealous of Caitlyn because it's oh, who's this new girl? You've got a new sister. You just got someone else with blue hair to try and replace me. No, I'm irreplaceable. That would make sense. That's a great parallel. But making her a lover, it kind of took away from the emphasis. It's oh, you're just placing your reason to live in a person now, in a relationship like that. I think that's not quite as strong as a sister bond. Plus, then it would perfectly balance or parallel with Jace and Victor. And you would see the exact same thing happening. And maybe they didn't want to have the same kind of story tie or story arc like Jace and Victor. But I still think it would have just been so cool if they were trying to be sisters and not lovers.
Yeah. Well, I think they probably put that in there because modern year, and they want to represent it. Well, and the thing...
Modern audiences.
Well, and also the thing about the lesbian relationship is it's not forced in the sense that like you could remove it from the story, but in my view, that almost makes it more insidious because it becomes what they're not saying like lesbians is fine, you bad Christians for being homophobic. They're not saying that, but what they're doing is they're just presenting it as normal, and that I think is also dangerous because that just means it's like the same for saying like if we lived in this, if you had like a movie that was great but just had people who were cannibals and that just wasn't a topic or an issue that was discussed, and it's like trying to normalize cannibalism. Obviously those are not the same, but it's I think a similar point where it's the idea like it's as Christians it's not something good that we can condone, and they're just essentially trying to normalize it. Also, they had sex at a really weird time, like just that too. Like that was just.
We're not going to talk about that.
I know, but that's just like this was like okay. I guess we're doing this now. Like that's like the epitome of that. That escalated quickly.
That scene does not exist.
I choose to watch the China release. I was going to say I did cheer in episode 7 when there was when Echo and Jinx kiss, more than just that they're cute together, but it's like heterosexuality. What is this?
It's no longer the normal.
Yeah, I was...
Imagine having to come out as straight to your parents.
Oh, no.
Going along with what Will was saying, I thought this for a while, when they make a big deal out of an LGBTQ relationship in a show or movie, it doesn't really help anyone. Normalizing it is more dangerous than making a big deal about it.
Yeah.
Because making it just something normal, it makes it I think it's kind of like what we've talked about with moral relativism, and you just see it as when you push a villain to be just seen as misunderstood, that's a dangerous view. And that's what we've seen with like the Acolyte was a big thing of that. Like, are the Sith really that bad? And in the same way, when we've pushed this thing that we know is wrong to something that is just normal, that's kind of the same kind of danger.
Yeah, I gotcha. Let's wrap up with hearing Josh's opening argument for bringing Vander back, and then he can go and we'll talk about it ourselves.
Okay. I think bringing Vander back was great because it was what kept Vi on the hook.
Yeah.
Because Vi, like I was saying, needed a reason to live, in the hope of Vander being alive is what brought her back from the dead, per se, because she was in the Fight Club. She was just getting drunk, doing everything that was wrong. Like, everyone felt bad for her in that moment because she knew that was like, oh, you're basically just dead.
Yeah.
Or you're treating you don't care about life. And then the hope of Vander being there is what kept her on the hook. And like, she had never been able to let go and she was still holding on to it. And Vander being alive confirmed that, but she needed to like truly let go. And so she needed to see him die again so that she could finally move on from the past. And that's what the ending is, her officially being moving on. Like, she had been able to say goodbye to Jinx. She had been able to say goodbye to Powder. She had been able to say goodbye to Vander and everything. And she's truly beyond all of it and living a better life, not in a Fight Club, not getting drunk all the time, not sleeping on the floor on a mattress. Like, she's truly better.
Well, and that's kind of like the great twist of the season, where it's like it gives you that hope, and you're just there, and they've got Vander, and they got the little family, and they can do the little commune thing, and then it's just crushed so painfully.
I love the idea of Vander like being special because of his incredible will to live, and Victor needed that. But anyways, I love you guys, but peace out, brethren. I'm gonna go to a party. Not actually.
Should he do
not
like
a party. It's a concert.
What you gonna have pineapple juice? That's the crazy drink that they have at Liberty.
Caffeine past 10 o'clock. I know. All right.
I still hold on to the fact that Vander's death in season 1, episode 3 should have been way more powerful. If it was kept as that. I saw a reel that was like, they can't kill this guy, or they keep trying to kill this guy because he had so many attempts on his life from various things that, and he just keeps coming back. So I don't know if he actually survived. Like, it'd be really weird if both him and Jinx survived at the end. But he, I'm glad that he wasn't just Warwick. He was also, he had that moment where he came out of his Warwick shell and was able to be Vander for a few moments. I think that makes it better for my argument, but also it is what it is. It's not something I'm going to get hung up on, like Will thinking Jinx needs to be punished for all her war crimes. And so
not punished, thorough justice. That's all I'm saying. Okay. We can do this on chain time, but if somebody in real life killed that many people, I would I'm going to treat them the exact same way. So
you're right. But yeah, Vander became he had like 3 transformations from in season 1, episode 3, where he took the shimmer and became a shimmer monster, and then he became Warwick, where he became the wolf type of character, and then when Victor got a hold of him, he became the enlightened creature, which had a cool design, but again, he had lost all his Vander characteristics by then. So yeah, I don't know. We knew he was coming back. I think it was something I was just denying for a long time. From the one of the first teasers we got like 2 years ago was him hanging from his wrists in Singed Lab. So
overall, you don't agree with him coming back?
I wouldn't have written it that way, but I'm not gonna die on this hill and say it ruined the whole show for me. It's fine.
Well, and
yeah, having him say powder when he breaks his trance, I guess, for that one moment makes it better, I guess.
Well, and it's interesting that Powder is the one that does that for him, because maybe, I don't know, are we going to talk about Warwick, or are we just going to do that character thing right here now?
No, we'll do it in we'll dive deeper.
Okay, then I won't really talk about
this. This has been the overview of season 2 episode.
And Seth, I think kind of what you're talking about is kind of the thing for season 2 in general, where there's a lot of, that's an interesting choice. I wouldn't have done that. Like, I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have, where it's like, so they decided to go with that or to do that. And that's, again, it's not necessarily that they did it bad all the time. And I think, like, for example, they handled most of what they chose to do pretty well. But season 1 had the benefit of setting everything up. And so it's like, you don't have that same baggage, for lack of a better term. And I think that's kind of what, like, people have a lot of expectations, and expectations are really hard to fill and to sit up, especially for such a big fan base as Arcane. So again, I think that kind of hurts season 2 in general. And just like, I do think that some of the choices they did maybe were not as beneficial overall. And I would kind of make the argument that the time travel multiverse thing maybe not needed to go as big scale. But again, that's also saying that what they did wasn't necessarily bad, and they did a good job with what they chose to do for the most part, like for like 99% of it, I'd say. But I think that there's some interesting choices that they definitely chose to make.
I would say, talking about Warwick's whole resurrection thing, I would say it's okay because it happened with consequences. I think bringing a character back without consequences is dumb. Like, I would, how they brought back Superman in Justice League. is a good example of just a bad way to bring back a character, because he was just kind of back after that. I mean, killing him as early as they did and bringing him back like they did, that whole thing was dumb. But just as an example of a dumb way to bring back a character. And I think this was a lot more intelligent, as we've said before, how this show is intelligent and thinks its viewers are intelligent. And I think just having him come back as a monster and kind of a tortured man, I think it was a good way to give Vi and Jinx a shared goal. Because it was Jinx that came to Vi, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, because she found Vi and like Jinx, who was like on like the floor literally, and she said like, you know, Vander's alive, and that's the thing that like prevented her from that's the thing that prevented Vi from basically snapping her neck at that moment. And like she also said like, you know, there's the big line, he's your father too. And then like there's that great scene, which is one of my favorite, where like Vi is protecting her sister from her father in this weird, strange scenario that's going on. But like it ends with them hugging, like quite literally hugging it out. And she says like, you know, he's your father too. And that scene was like just great, and as well, I love that one.
Yeah. But I think going from them like literally trying to kill each other in episode 3 to working together in episode 4 because they think their father is alive was very impactful. So I think I liked it in that sense.
Yeah, because I don't think there would have been anything else that would have been able to make them do that at that moment.
Yeah, it was a good driving force, I would say. Cool. Do you guys have anything else that's of note? That's big, that's overarching. We'll get into details in a future episode. I'm excited to do that already. But what are you guys thinking?
The only other thing that I kind of really want to say is, again, I liked it. And I'm more critical of the multiverse and time travel thing because I think it's kind of unnecessarily complicated. And like, I think it would have been better. I think you could still do the whole glorious evolution with Victor, but just maybe make it so that his commune is destroyed and like he just creates a tinier army that could have the potential to grow, but it's just a bit smaller scale. I think that would have been more beneficial. Again, what they did was fine for the most part. With that all being said, though, episode 7 is still my favorite out of the entire season.
I would say too.
Maybe even, I think, probably out of the entire show. Maybe it's kind of like debatable.
Wow.
But and as much as I'm gonna harp on I don't like Jinx, I love Powder, the alternate Powder, and like that whole Echo scene. And I think again, that's I just love that episode, especially with just you know what Echo is able to see, and Echo's character as a whole, I think is really great throughout this entire season. Because if you look at Echo's character, like his entire story, like he starts out as little man, and then he has to quite literally grow up fighting Silco, and he becomes kind of like the best person there is in the Undercity, trying to fight Silco, not giving in to like his own darker impulses for most of it, and trying to create a thriving community. He fights against Jinx, but he still sees the good in her, but he struggles with that. And then like he adopts Heimerdinger as his kind of like his teacher, and he learns and he grows and he develops. But then like season 2, his whole thing is like suddenly like this person, I'm switched to another dimension. And like I think episode 7 is so key for Echo's character, because that's the reason that he's able to save Jinx, because he's able to see that she is good. Because like think about it, like everything else that Echo has seen about Jinx has been like her evil persona. And so episode 7 is absolutely critical for him being able to see this is what could have been, and there is something good in Powder. And so when he comes back, he's able to say, like, yeah, you've done some terrible stuff, but I'm actually able to see the good in you, and I can actually work with you, and I can actually save you. And again, he ends in that kind of like depressed and stuff, but like he is like the boy's savior, like the true Chad of Arcane, maybe.
Yeah, and he's having him be such an overpowered side character that has so much impact on the rest of the story is crazy. I love him so much.
We'll hear more about him in the next episode.
Yeah, I think we will.
And I just want to say on a lighter note, I think the live action fan cast that I've seen are funny and dumb. It's the same ones.
Some of them are trolly.
It's like, I think people are legitimately fan casting Timothée Chalamet as Victor, and I don't.
I can actually see that. There. Like maybe Timothée Chalamet in like 20 years, I can see it.
Yeah,
I think because Victor has a very distinctive cheekbone, and I think Timothée Chalamet has a similar structure. I think you could do, but
I think people want to see Timothée Chalamet play another space Jesus,
and try to commit a maybe not mass genocide, but like mass conquest.
Yeah,
he's not Gaib.
Yeah,
he's not Gaib. He is the one.
But also, I mean, just look at the animated cast, and there's your live action cast. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes.
To some extent.
We have an episode coming up called Live Action Remakes, and I think we'll come back to this.
And I'm not saying there should be a live action remake of
correct.
What I'm saying is, I mean, you just need the live act, you just need the voice actors pretty much to play. The characters in live action.
They'd be good. They would. Okay. Cool. I think we'll save it at that. Josh is gone, so we can talk all the crap we want about him. But we're gonna wrap it up.
Gay?
No.
Is this the time to have that conversation?
No. Michael will confirm. We should have Michael on an episode. We should ask her what she likes. I don't know what she likes. Anyways,
she likes Josh.
She likes Josh. Yes. Thank you guys for listening or watching. Join our Discord, buy some merch. We have our 100th episode coming up pretty soon, which is really exciting because I have some stuff planned. It's actually going to be our New Year's episode, our 2025 predictions. So we have our Christmas episode next week, our end of the year review awards episode. We're going to do an award show, and then we'll have our 100th episode as our kick off into 2025. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we got some stuff coinciding with that. So look forward to that. Share this with your friends, and until next week, know that you're loved. God bless.
Take care, folks.
Thanks for watching, Mom. I don't think she's actually watched this one, but
she
hasn't seen Arcane, so.
Yeah, I don't know. So sometimes I'm like, do our moms watch stuff that the episodes that they know nothing about? I don't know.
I doubt it.
It's kind of that's kind of interesting.
To be fair, I don't know anything else that any of the other topics that they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, I need to send you some more of the essays though, because I think I might have referenced a few of them, but just maybe for the other episodes, but I might send them some of the video.
I mean, we were my mom's top podcast on Spotify.